Look, you've heard this before, but not in this context, okay? You know how we all scroll down when we're going to sign up for a streaming thing or, other applications, and you got to agree to terms and conditions? We all scroll down and just hit agree, right? There's a reason they're that long. If you signed up for Disney Plus, like we did, or any of the other streaming services like Hulu, which we did, you may be signing away more than you thought. Not that other servers don't do this, but this is kind of a caveat emptor, buyer beware. A widower named Jeffrey Piccolo filed a wrongful death suit after his wife Amy died from a severe allergic reaction after eating at a restaurant within the Disney World complex in a shopping district called Disney Springs. Family says they've had several conversations with their waiter about Amy's allergies and even confirmed with the chef that her meal would be allergen-free. She then passed because of the meal, they say, and filed a wrongful death lawsuit because of it. Disney says, can't sue us. They're trying to get the case thrown out and sent to arbitration, which is a little bit different, by the way. The headlines are misleading on this story, okay? They're saying because Jeffrey signed up for a free 1-month trial at Disney Plus back in 2019 and signed their terms of use, which includes a tiny paragraph that says any dispute must be resolved by arbitration, that means even this wrongful death case must get into it. And I don't know. So I'm bringing in a better mind. Trial attorney Misty Marris. Now, Misty, I want to give Disney their best defense. They say, we're deeply saddened by the family's loss. Understand their grief. Given that this restaurant is neither owned nor operated by Disney, we're merely defending ourselves against the plaintiff's attorney's attempt to include us in their lawsuit against the restaurant. Well, if that's what they were doing, Misty, then they would say there's no privity of contract with us. We have no exposure to this lawsuit, and they would argue it in court. That's not what they're doing. They're saying because you signed this thing for Disney Plus, you don't have any right to a cause of action against us. How does it smell, and how does it weigh in the balance of justice?
Yeah, Chris, I don't know about a better mind, but I love talking about these issues with you because I know you want to deep dive into these contractual issues with me. So, number one, it's two separate issues, right? So, on one hand, Disney, in response, they have this statement that they've made. My feeling is that the statement was probably made because there was a PR nightmare when this story started hitting the airwaves, because it seems pretty ridiculous that you would sign up for an app and then all of a sudden you would be forced into arbitration for a personal injury case that happens in the brick and mortar on the property. But the argument that they're raising in this statement is whether or not they actually have a duty to the plaintiff. They're not owners of this property. That's a separate issue from who hears the case. Whether or not it's a judge and a jury filed in a court of law, as the plaintiffs here have done, or it's before an arbitrator. In either case, Disney is likely to raise this as a defense, saying, hey, look, we're not responsible for this particular restaurant because we don't have ownership. I would say that's not necessarily ending the day either way, because the question becomes, well, what responsibility does Disney have for setting safety protocols, hiring, firing, training, and all of that between the restaurant, who might be the owner, and any agreement they have to operate on Disney property? So there's a lot of factual issues to clear up with respect to that. But the big question is, who hears those issues?
I like your point. Well, I like all your points. But there's a reason they didn't mention the terms and conditions in the statement that I just read to you. And that's because it's not their best legal argument. I can't believe a judge would entertain it. Do you?
No. And here's the reason, Chris, because you pulled that language. Absolutely. By the way, I pulled up my account and said, what the heck did I sign? Because I have that subscription. And also in anticipation of talking to you, I wanted to see exactly what that language was, because as you said, buyer beware. Anytime you sign terms and conditions, buy a ticket to something, whatever it is, you're signing a contract at the end of the day.
Right.
But you don't just look at that one isolated component of a contract from a court's perspective and make a determination that, okay, any and all cases, no matter what they are, have to go into arbitration. You have to look at the full agreement. And when I looked, what did I see? Right. I saw user registration, subscriptions, cancellation of the app, payment, copyright. everything you would think would relate to the use of the application, the use of the platform, not when you step onto that property and if you experience a personal injury when you're actually in the park. And when something is silent, Chris, as you know, as a lawyer, when there's silence in a contract, it comes down to the intent of the parties and what a reasonable person would think. And I don't think you're going to find a judge or an arbitrator who's going to say it's reasonable to assume as a buyer you're signing away any right to be heard in a court of law because you signed up for an app on your television.
Yeah, I think it was poor form, and I think Disney takes so much stock in being seen as a class organization. I bet you now it's going to they're going to find out who offered that up as the defense, first of all, and that person may have some agita coming their way. But I bet you they wind up doing something as a grand gesture now because of this, because the reputation of the company is so important to Iger and the other officials. We'll look at it. You know, when they teach you in law school about the reasonable man, do you remember the metaphor from British common law, where it came from? The man on the Clapham bus. What would somebody sitting on the bus going to work think about this situation? Misty, thank you so much, Misty Marris. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, always.